Reddit, tell me your glitch in the Matrix Stories Part 1. Experience 1. This will probably get buried. When I was around 20, a few years ago, I kept having dreams about a woman with long black hair named Aurora, pronounced Aurora. They were different dreams, but for some reason, her distinct face and name always ended up in them. It got to the point where I would wake up frustrated and confused, trying to Google her name or find out how I was connected to her. After a few months, she stopped showing up and I dismissed it, thinking my brain was just being a scumbag. Fast forward a few years later, Halloween 2009, I'm in the car with a friend stopped at a gas station. I'm about to pull out and merge onto a highway when I get a phone call from a random number, so I stop the car, but no one answers. There was a person behind me who grew impatient, honked at me, and then swerved in front of me instead of waiting for 2 seconds for me to move. Second, they get on the highway, and some silver Civic loses control of their wheel and crashes into the car that swerved in front of me. I called the cops and waited at the gas station for them to come. Turns out the drivers of both cars died. It 100% would have been me if I hadn't have got that phone call. Called it back a few hours later out of gratitude and curiosity, rang 3 times and went to voicemail. Hi, you've reached Aurora, please leave your name and number. Never had goosebumps like that in my life. Called it again the next day, because I was that confused about the whole situation. Some woman answers, and we get to talking. I tell her my entire story including the dreams I had. She tells me she doesn't know how I got her number and that she never called me as far as she remembers. Weird. Ask her if she has a Facebook to confirm if she is in fact the woman in my dreams. Check her Facebook. Holy crap, it's her. If that's not a glitch in the Matrix, then I'm just baddish crazy. Experience 2. I've related this story before, but here goes. The Parallel Universe Answering Machine. This happened about 15 years ago. I called my friend up and he wasn't home, so I left a message on his answering machine. I said,
Hey, it's me KLLALLEXTREMISTS. Sorry, I missed you. Call me later. Bye.
And then I hung up and left the house. I made no other calls. Later that day he called back and said,
Wow, that was quite a message you left. Who was that girl you were talking to?
I was like,
What are you talking about? I wasn't talking to any girl.
well, as it turns out the message didn't end after I said bye. I had to go over to his house and listen to this message a few times. After my initial message that I did leave, as quoted above, there was a slight pause and it continued for another 30 to 40 seconds or so with me talking to some girl. It was my voice, but a conversation I never had with a girl whose voice I didn't recognize. You could compare it to the message I know I did leave, and the two voices were indistinguishable. Not just the voice but, talking mannerisms. It was my voice. Also, references to my occupation and activities were the same. Basically, in this conversation, I was talking to this girl about going skiing, but I had to go down to my shop and work on a car first, which totally correlated with me. Then the message just stopped. It was recorded on one of those digital answering machines that recorded the message to a chip, so there was no tape I could have taken and analyzed, unfortunately. Also, neither I nor my friend had party lines, so that's not an explanation. It was very freaky, I can't explain it. Experience 3. Driving home on a storm day, I see that a side road up to the local golf course is blocked off by flashing barricades. I also spy a Mercedes parked past the barricades with its hazards on. I stop and walk up to the car to see if they need help. I'm an EMT. I shine my light in the back seat to see a man slumped over apparently asleep. Thinking I've got a few drunks, I move up to the driver's window and rap on the glass and shine my light in. The driver is sitting bolt upright, unmoving, staring straight ahead. My window rapping or light doesn't cause him to blink, flinch, or move. I look over and the passenger is slumped forward onto the dash. This begins to creep me out. I call down to the sheriff's station and request a code 2, no lights/sirens, unit up to my location to help me check them out. Doors are locked. While on the phone, I walk back to my truck to get my go bag. As I'm on the phone with dispatch, she asks me to get a license number for the car just as a PG&E, power company, cherry picker truck comes rumbling down from up the closed road. I move to go around the truck to get the plate number, and the car is gone. I talked to the driver of the truck, and he said there was an 80-foot tree down across the road, and that he didn't think it'd be open for a day or so. So, the question is, the hell did the car go? Tree up one way, barricades down the other. It's kept me a bit unsettled when stopping at accidents/hazards since then. Experience 4. At 12 years of age, my mom let me stay in the truck as she went grocery shopping. As I wait, I see an old guy walking towards the truck with an indescribable look at me as if I know too much. He stops 5 feet from the truck, looks at me for a couple of seconds, and heads back the exact way he came. It was rather traumatic for some reason and very confusing at that age. 5 to 6 years later, my dad was showing me home videos of us at Yellowstone. At Old Faithful, I noticed the same guy, the same look, same clothes peering at us on camera and at me through the TV. I'm freaked out just telling you this. Edit, I didn't expect this story to be such a hit. A few more details, the Yellowstone video was from when I was very young. I'm thinking 1 or 2 years of age. I was in an awesome baby pack on my dad's back. Also, I will try my hardest to find the video. I don't see my parents often, and if I do, I don't think either of them will know where our home videos are. Divorce can be a messy and destructive thing. If I do find it, I will definitely post the video and message you all. Experience 5. At a friend's place back in 2008. When we were all teenagers, we had a cool shed at a friend's that we'd hang out in every weekend. It had 4 sets of bunk beds, tables, a fireplace, a TV, a fridge, etc., the whole lot. One night we were all hanging out in there when I decided I needed a piss. I walked out the front door of the shed and started to walk to the right when I stopped. Now let me explain the layout here. As you walk out of the shed, his house is to the left and the right is where we all parked our cars, further out your left with empty fields and trees. It was dark by now, the lights from the house illuminating the space between the house and our cars, but trailing off just past them. As I took a step to the right, intending to go behind the cars to relieve myself, I saw my friend's older brother standing there. I watched him for a good 5 to 10 seconds as he stood there, facing into the darkness. He then proceeded to walk behind a couple of trees and a car before he disappeared. Confused, I walked back into the shed and asked my friend what his brother was doing by the cars. The conversation went as follows. Me.
Hey man, what's your brother doing by the cars?
Him.
What do you mean?
Me.
He just walked off behind the cars.
Brother.
I'm right here.
I looked over and there his brother was, sitting down on one of the chairs with a drink. He was wearing the exact same clothes as I saw him in, and the only way to get into the shed was through the door that I was standing in the way of. To this day, I've no idea how it all happened. I'm guessing I was just seeing things, but the fact that I watched him walk around for a good 10 seconds has always puzzled me. I've never had anything else like that happen. Experience 6. Oh man, I have one of these that involves the Matrix. I got my wisdom teeth out in 2000, right around the time that the original Matrix came out on VHS. I was bombed completely out of my mind on Percocet after coming back from the surgery. I had awful wisdom teeth, and my mom just dropped me in bed and went and rented the movie for me because I'd never seen it in theaters. I remember being irritated that the sun through the window was making the TV glare, but being too out of it to get up. A little bit after the black cat glitch in the Matrix scene, I passed out and apparently slept for about 8 hours. The tape in the VHS machine kept rewinding itself and playing over and over again. I woke up and the movie was at roughly the same spot as when I passed out, but it was completely dark outside. 0 time lapse for me. Completely lost my mind. Started freaking out and screaming because I thought I'd discovered the secret and somebody turned off the sun. I remember crying and trying to explain to my panicked family, who have never let me live it down. Experience 7. My dad had this little toy monkey that he used to call his favorite child and teased me and my siblings with it. Not in a bad way, but it was really frustrating to us, and we spent hours trying to steal it from him. Well, anyway, one day we finally got it and threw it into the garbage after drawing on it and mangling it for a bit. My dad laughed and searched for it a bit, but basically figured we had thrown it out and gave up after a week or so. Anyway, a few years later, when I was about 17, I was walking down the street in Toronto. I don't live in Toronto and was just visiting friends, and saw this little orange object on the side of the road. When I walk over to it, I pick it up and see that it was the exact same freaking monkey. It even had the black Sharpie lines on it from when we drew all over it. I honestly cannot even come up with the chances of that happening, especially considering our garbage is sent to a local dump and is nowhere near Toronto. Edit, I actually took it with me and killed it with fire just so I knew it wouldn't come back again. Experience 8. I had a friend in high school, let's call him Bob. Bob was a very nice fellow, and while we weren't that close, we had similar tastes in music and we'd share CDs. This is in the late 80s, way before file sharing. Anyway, we eventually graduated, and I moved several hundred miles away to college, and we lost touch. When I left for college, I had one of Bob's CDs still in my possession, Beat by King Crimson. Fast forward 10 years. I'd graduated college and was knee-deep in my career, and finally saved up enough money and bought my first house. In the new house, and while unpacking, I saw the CD in a box, hadn't noticed it in many years, and thought, gee, I really should track down Bob and return this. Right then, the doorbell rings. It's Bob. And he says,
Hey, you wouldn't happen to still have my King Crimson CD, would you?
I look down. I'm holding it in my hand. I hand it to him, and his mouth drops open, mine probably already is. We exchange pleasantries. I probably asked him how he found me, but I no longer remember. He eventually takes off. I haven't seen Bob since. Experience 9. I'm late to the party, but this has freaked me out forever. I was a satellite installer, and I was driving between two small towns in North Carolina, Statesville and Taylorsville. It's about a 20-minute drive of a perfectly straight two-lane road with pretty much nothing but trees on either side. It's the middle of the day, and I'm driving along listening to Howard Stern on Sirius when all of a sudden, I go from wide awake to falling asleep. Meaning, 1 second, I'm normal, and a second later my head is drooping down and my eyes closing, and what snaps me out of it is my car bouncing like I just hit a speed bump, but I'm still in the middle of the road. Howard Stern is still in the same sentence, but my GPS signal says it is lost, and then I hear recalculating, and when it comes back, I realize I am about 12 miles further down the road than I was, and I had missed my turn by 5 miles. My immediate thought, even though I consider myself a level-headed atheist, was that I fell asleep, hit a tree and died, and was now in some weird afterlife. It was such a strong feeling that I drove to the nearest gas station, got out, headed inside with sweaty palms, feeling that the cashier inside was not going to be able to see me. To my relief, she did, and I bought a Red Bull. I still think I was hypnotized by the road and drove on some weird autopilot for a while, but losing the GPS signal and not missing any of Howard Stern is explainable to me. I even used the Sirius ability to rewind, and there was none of the show that I missed. In case you're wondering, my butthole felt fine. Experience 10. I have 2 stories that are just weird as hell. Both of them are things I just would not believe if someone else told them to me, but I can swear with every fiber of my being that they happened as I write them here. The first happened a couple of years ago. I can't remember the occasion, but my mother and I had gone to A&W for lunch, and we were both sitting there eating our meals. We happened to be seated pretty close to the washroom doors, so I noticed everyone going in and out. The first person to come out is this old man who's kind of hobbling along. He walked past and I looked at him and went on with my meal. Not 30 seconds later, another man comes out of the bathroom, and at this point I get a little freaked out because I realize it's the exact same person. Same limp, clothing, face, everything. A couple of minutes later, the same thing happens except it's an old woman this time. She comes out, then 30 seconds later comes right out of the bathroom again. My mom took a look at me and said,
You look like you've seen a ghost.
I just kind of stammered a bit, then wrote it off as me being crazy. The next story is weirder, in my opinion, and is the single strangest occurrence of my life. This happened when I was about 9 years old, but I can still remember it vividly. We were visiting family in Nevada with my dad, and they lived out in a very dry area in a fairly good-sized trailer. A couple of days in, I was playing outside with my cousin, pretty much just messing around in the dirt. At some point, I look up. Right next to the house is a field, I guess, surrounded by a wire fence, probably originally for livestock. But anyway, this guy is standing there. This is a good 300 or more feet away, so I cannot see him clearly at all. Cue the weird. As soon as I look at this guy, I have what I can only describe as an out-of-body experience. My body pretty much just went into lockdown, and I was no longer seeing through my eyes. And I wasn't just floating there or anything. I was in that man's body. Through his eyes, I could see two little shapes playing across the field, but I could just feel that he saw the shapes as animals. And then I realized he was holding a freaking shotgun. After that, I regained my body and blurted out, "We have to go indoors," not explain it to my cousin, who thought I was nuts. I didn't tell anyone because I just didn't know how to express it to other people back then. I've only since told my brothers, but I don't think they believed me. Still freaks me out when I think about it today because it's the only time I've ever lost control of my body. It was almost like a dream, but the whole thing felt like it was happening in slow motion.
We hope you enjoyed listening to today's stories. If you want to see more stories, check out these videos or check the links in the description for more videos. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And ring that notification bell.